There's a moment that happens in nearly every conversation. Someone asks a difficult question, and the other person's eyes drift away. Not dramatically, not obviously, but just enough. Psychology suggests this isn't rudeness or disinterest. It's something far more revealing about how the human mind actually works. When two people lock eyes, something remarkable happens in the brain. Research indicates that eye contact activates the limbic system, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions and social information. It's not a passive act. The brain treats sustained eye contact as an event that requires significant neural resources. This is why a simple glance can feel so different from a prolonged gaze. One registers as casual observation, the other as something far more intense. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Early humans needed to quickly determine whether another person's direct gaze signaled threat or alliance. A stare from a stranger could mean danger. A warm look from a group member could mean safety. The brain developed specialized circuits to process these distinctions rapidly. Even today, those ancient mechanisms still operate beneath conscious awareness. When someone maintains intense eye contact, the nervous system responds, often triggering a low-level stress response that the person may not even consciously recognize. But evolution also shaped eye contact as a tool for bonding. Parents gaze at infants, lovers lock eyes, friends share knowing glances. The same behavior that can signal threat also creates intimacy. This dual nature creates an interesting tension. The brain must constantly calibrate whether eye contact in any given moment feels safe or threatening, connecting or overwhelming. Cultural context adds another layer of complexity. What counts as appropriate eye contact varies dramatically across societies. Research shows that in some Western cultures, direct eye contact signals confidence and honesty. In parts of East Asia, Africa, and Latin America, prolonged eye contact, especially with authority figures, can be considered disrespectful or confrontational. A person raised in one context may experience genuine discomfort with eye contact patterns that feel completely natural to someone from another background. Neither response is wrong. Both are learned adaptations to different social frameworks. Beyond culture, there's a fascinating cognitive reason people look away during conversations. Studies on working memory reveal that eye contact actually competes for mental resources with complex thinking. When someone asks a difficult question, the brain needs to access memory, process information, formulate language, and construct a coherent response. Meanwhile, maintaining eye contact requires ongoing attention to read facial expressions, monitor emotional responses, and manage the social interaction itself. The brain struggles to do both simultaneously. Researchers have found that people consistently perform worse on cognitively demanding tasks when maintaining eye contact. They recall less information, solve problems more slowly, and produce less articulate answers. Looking away isn't avoidance. It's the brain's way of reducing cognitive load so it can focus resources on the task at hand. This explains a common workplace pattern. During job interviews, candidates often look away when answering complex questions about their experience or skills. Interviewers sometimes interpret this as evasiveness or lack of confidence. But psychology suggests the opposite may be true. The candidate looking away might actually be engaging more deeply with the question, accessing detailed memories and constructing thoughtful responses. The person who maintains constant eye contact while answering might be delivering rehearsed answers that require less cognitive effort. The same pattern appears in everyday conversations. When someone asks for directions, people typically look away while mentally mapping the route. When recalling a specific event, eyes drift upward or to the side as the person searches their memory. When explaining a complicated concept, the gaze often shifts away from the listener. These aren't signs of disinterest. They're visible evidence of thinking in progress. Eye contact also functions as an emotional amplifier. Whatever feelings exist in a conversation become more intense when two people maintain eye contact. This can be wonderful in moments of joy, humor, or affection. But during difficult conversations, that amplification can become uncomfortable or even unbearable. Consider what happens during an argument in a close relationship. When someone feels hurt, ashamed, or defensive, Maintaining eye contact forces them to witness the other person's disappointment, anger, or pain while simultaneously exposing their own emotional state. It creates a level of vulnerability that many people instinctively want to reduce. Looking away provides a brief respite, a chance to regulate emotions without the added pressure of being visibly observed. Research indicates that people are more likely to avoid eye contact when discussing topics that evoke shame or guilt. A person admitting a mistake, confessing a secret, or delivering disappointing news often finds it easier to speak while looking down or away. The avoidance isn't necessarily about hiding. It's about managing the emotional intensity of the moment. The words themselves are difficult enough without adding the visual exchange of pain or judgment. This also explains why some of the most honest conversations happen side by side rather than face to face. Driving in a car, walking together, or sitting next to each other on a couch creates conditions where meaningful discussion can occur without constant eye contact. The parallel positioning removes the intensity while maintaining connection. Many therapists and counselors note that clients, especially those discussing traumatic or shameful experiences, often find it easier to speak when not under direct gaze. For individuals who experience social anxiety, eye contact presents unique challenges. Psychology distinguishes between general shyness and the specific fear that others are evaluating and judging through eye contact. For these individuals, sustained eye contact can feel exposing, as if every flaw and inadequacy is visible and being assessed. Public speaking situations intensify this dynamic. A person standing before an audience faces dozens or hundreds of eyes simultaneously. The brain, still operating on ancient wiring, can interpret this as a threat scenario. Heart rate increases, palms sweat, thoughts scatter. Some speakers cope by looking just over the audience's heads or focusing on friendly faces. Others find it helpful to look at foreheads rather than eyes. These aren't signs of weakness. They're practical adaptations that allow the person to function despite discomfort. Even routine daily interactions can trigger avoidance for those who struggle with social anxiety. The person who looks down in an elevator, who studies their phone while waiting in line, who avoids the gaze of a server taking their order isn't necessarily being rude. They may be managing a genuine discomfort that others don't experience. The internal experience might involve intrusive thoughts about being judged, fears about appearing awkward, or simply an overwhelming sense of exposure. Power dynamics also shape eye contact patterns in predictable ways. Behavioral research shows that subordinates often avoid prolonged eye contact with superiors. An employee may glance away when receiving criticism from a manager. A student might look down when questioned by a professor. In many contexts, this gaze aversion actually signals respect and acknowledgement of hierarchy rather than disinterest or defiance. Conversely, those in positions of power often maintain more direct and prolonged eye contact. A manager holding eye contact while speaking to an employee subtly reinforces authority. Political leaders learn to use direct gaze to project confidence and control. The person who can maintain eye contact longest in a tense exchange often establishes dominance, whether consciously or not. These patterns are so deeply ingrained that they operate automatically. People rarely think consciously about adjusting their eye contact based on power dynamics, yet they do it constantly. The intern looks away more than the executive. The child avoids prolonged eye contact with the parent during a scolding. The defendant in court typically doesn't stare down the judge. These behaviors reflect unspoken social codes about hierarchy and appropriate deference. Individual neurological differences also play a significant role in eye contact comfort. For some people on the autism spectrum, eye contact can feel physically uncomfortable or overwhelming. The experience has been described as painfully intense, like staring at a bright light. This isn't a choice or a social slight. It's a difference in sensory processing. Similarly, individuals with attention regulation differences may struggle to maintain eye contact not because of anxiety or disrespect, but because their attention naturally shifts more frequently. Holding eye contact requires sustained focus that may feel unnatural or effortful for them. They might engage more fully in conversation when allowed to move, fidget, or shift their gaze naturally. This variability highlights an important point. When someone avoids eye contact, Observers often make assumptions about what it means. They interpret it as lying, disinterest, rudeness, or insecurity. But psychology suggests these interpretations are often wrong. The same behavior can arise from completely different causes. The person may be thinking deeply, managing emotions, showing cultural respect, navigating power dynamics, or simply processing information differently. There's a paradox at the heart of eye contact. While it's often considered essential for connection, sometimes avoiding it actually facilitates better communication. A person struggling to articulate a complex idea may need to look away to find the right words. Someone sharing something deeply personal may need to break eye contact to continue speaking. A student processing new information may need to shift their gaze to fully absorb what's being taught. Context determines appropriateness. Constant, intense eye contact during a casual conversation can feel aggressive or strange. No eye contact at all during an intimate moment might signal disconnection. The socially skilled person learns to modulate eye contact based on the situation, the relationship, and the content being discussed. They make eye contact to show engagement, then look away to think, then return their gaze to reconnect. Modern technology has introduced new complications. Humans evolved to navigate eye contact in physical proximity, but video calls create an awkward dynamic. Looking at the other person's eyes on screen means looking away from the camera, so the other person sees you looking down. Looking at the camera to simulate eye contact means you can't actually see the other person. This creates a strange dissonance that many find exhausting. Some researchers suggest this contributes to video call fatigue. Additionally, generations growing up with significant screen time may be developing different baseline comfort levels with eye contact. When much social interaction happens through text and images rather than face-to-face, the skills and comfort around eye contact may shift. This isn't necessarily negative, just different. Social norms evolve with technology and culture. What becomes clear when examining all these factors is that eye contact avoidance is far more nuanced than simple interpretations suggest. It's not a character flaw or a sign of dishonesty. It's an adaptive behavior that serves multiple functions depending on context. The brain manages cognitive load by looking away. The self protects emotional well-being by breaking intense gaze. Cultural values express themselves through appropriate eye contact patterns. Neurological differences shape individual comfort and capacity. Perhaps the most useful perspective is to see eye contact not as a requirement for good communication, but as one tool among many. Sometimes it enhances connection. Sometimes it interferes with it. The person who rigidly maintains eye contact regardless of context may actually be less socially attuned than the person who fluidly adjusts based on the needs of the moment. Understanding why people avoid eye contact reveals something profound about human nature. People are constantly balancing multiple demands: processing information, managing emotions, navigating social hierarchies, respecting cultural norms, and accommodating individual differences. Eye contact sits at the intersection of all these forces. How someone manages it in any given moment reflects the complex calculations happening beneath conscious awareness. The next time someone looks away during a conversation, consider the possibilities. They might be thinking more deeply about what was said. They might be managing the emotional weight of the moment. They might be showing respect in the way they learned. They might be protecting themselves from feeling overwhelmed. Or they might simply process the world differently. In most cases, it says far more about human complexity than about rudeness or deception. Eye contact tells a complicated story, and avoidance is just one chapter. What patterns have you noticed in your own interactions? When do you find eye contact easy, and when does it become uncomfortable? The comment section is open for observations. And if this analysis offered a new perspective, consider sharing it with someone who might find it useful. More explorations of human behavior are coming soon.